Hello, National University Academy students working on your AP U.S. History B course and National University Virtual High School students as well. Wanted to go over with you the 14 questions that you will find in Part 2 of Unit 7, Assignment 3. I will have to move quickly as in order to get these all in 5 minutes. We may have to rush through them, but I'll give you the page numbers for further reading so you can get greater detail in your notes. Let's begin with the first question. It says, read Kennedy intensifies the Cold War and answer the following questions, or the questions below. What did Kennedy believe Eisenhower had failed to do well during his administration with respect to the Cold War? Kennedy believed that Eisenhower held down defense spending, as it is quoted here on page 861, and he allowed the Soviet Union to open up a dangerous lead in ICBMs. This was called the missile gap. Now, while this was a big talking point for Kennedy, that missile gap was not an actual missile gap. The United States was still ahead in its missile superiority. Number two, it says, what becomes Kennedy's first priority once he is in office? What are some of the reasons why this is a priority of his administration? His first priority was foreign policy, and this received priority because of the perilous world situation, quote, you'll find this on page 861 again, the immediate dangers ranging from unresolved conflict of the Berlin Wall to the emergence of Fidel Castro and the Soviet ally in Cuba, which will of course lead to the conflict with the Bay of Pigs, and then later the 13 days, the Cuban Missile Crisis. Number three, who were the best and brightest, and what did they believe about the American foreign policy and the Soviet Union? The best and brightest were the new frontiersmen, and they all believed that American security depended on superior force and a willingness to use it. This is going to be before Kissinger's madman theory, and prior to Reagan's use of the peace through strength concepts. But it's similar in that it's saying we have to be strong and have a superior force and be willing to use it to show both our allies and our enemies that we are a confident nation militarily. Number four, Kennedy claims the Soviet Union is opening a missile gap. What was true about the United States' nuclear capability and armed forces at the time? Number four, at the time the U.S. had a significant lead in nuclear striking power, page 861. So you can call this propaganda if you want on Kennedy's. As far as Kennedy goes, it's not unusual for politicians to lie or exaggerate in order to win. Kennedy was no different. If you're a Democrat and you were brought up to believe that Kennedy was somehow better than other politicians and that he wouldn't somehow lie, he was above that. As a history teacher and as a history student, you will find that there just isn't a politician that will not exaggerate or tell a false truth in order to gain some points in the polls. Number five, listing some examples from the text, explain how committed Kennedy was to strengthening the military, page 861. Kennedy had 1,000 Minutemen solid fuel ICBMs and 32 Polaris submarines carrying 652 missiles constructed. So he was definitely on the prowl. He was strengthening the military. Number six, identify and explain the difference between massive retaliation and flexible response. Massive retaliation was the use of ultra-destructive weapons, while flexible response was the ability to use destructive weapons to cause damage. Number seven, describe how President Kennedy approached the crisis over Berlin. Was his strong stance against Khrushchev and the Soviet Union too aggressive, or were his bold actions necessary to keep American interests safe and moving forward? And given the time, I'll have to go do 2 segments for this, but let's look at 7 before I stop. Kennedy was willing to give in to the Soviets' demands, and this was necessary to keep American interests abroad safe and moving forward. This is, again, on page 861. However, he would show to be a good Cold War strategist, and we'll get into that in a moment. I'm going to pause for now.